Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, as you settle beneath your blanket and let your mind drift, we will journey far beyond the warmth of our world. We will slip quietly into the deep, dark reaches of space, where ancient rocks and shimmering metals dance in silent orbits. Have you ever wondered who owns the treasures floating beyond our skies? Who can lay claim to the gold hidden in asteroids, or the moon's quiet, glittering plains? Let your breathing slow as you imagine yourself among the stars, drifting between cosmic stones formed before Earth was born. Feel the softness of curiosity wrap around you, comforting your heart as you sink deeper into sleep. This is your story of asteroid mining. Who gets to own the moon's gold? A gentle exploration of cosmic riches, human dreams, and the questions we carry into the night sky. So close your eyes, rest your body, and come along. The universe is waiting. You lie back, letting your body sink into the bed, the darkness of your room blending seamlessly with the night sky outside your window. Above you, invisible to the naked eye, countless stones drift in cold silence. These are the asteroids, ancient wanderers that have circled the sun for billions of years, long before your ancestors first looked up in wonder. You imagine yourself floating gently beyond Earth's blue curve, weightless, the air gone quiet except for the soft pulse of your own heartbeat. Before you stretches the asteroid belt, a band of rocky fragments between Mars and Jupiter. They hover like frozen memories, each one a piece of a story never fully told. These stones are time capsules. Each carries within it the ingredients of our solar system's birth: carbon, iron, nickel, silicates, and tiny grains formed in the hearts of dying stars. When you think of how Earth came to be, you see these same materials swirling in a vast disk of dust and gas, sticking together, colliding, heating, breaking apart, and merging again. Your breath deepens. You feel the ancientness of these rocks as if their age hums softly beneath your ribs. Some asteroids are as small as a grain of sand. Others are hundreds of kilometers wide. Entire worlds of stone left over from a time when planets were still gathering themselves together. As you drift among them in your mind, you see how their surfaces are cratered, fractured, and dark like soot-covered relics. Their orbits seem chaotic at first, but slowly a pattern emerges, an elegant dance governed by the gravity's unseen hand. You notice how Jupiter's immense presence shapes their paths, sometimes flinging them away, sometimes pulling them into resonance, like a conductor controlling the timing of a cosmic symphony. You picture these silent rocks occasionally leaving their belt, slipping into the inner solar system as meteorites or near-Earth asteroids. They become both threat and gift, destroyers if they strike our world, but also carriers of water and organic molecules that might have helped life begin. You marvel at the paradox of their role, harbingers of extinction and seeds of creation, both woven into their silent journeys. You breathe slowly, letting your thoughts sway with the asteroid's gentle arcs. The cold darkness between them feels endless, yet filled with the quiet potential of all things. Each stone is a leftover possibility, a fragment of a planet that never was, a clue to what might have been. You sense how some are rich in metals, others in carbon compounds, each one a unique recipe shaped by distance from the sun and the heat of their ancient collisions. You remember how scientists once believed the asteroid belt was the shattered remains of a destroyed planet, a world that broke apart long ago. But now you know this belt is more like a gathering place for raw ingredients that never coalesced, caught between the tug of Mars and the pull of mighty Jupiter. As you drift deeper into this thought, you feel a quiet awe. These small, unassuming rocks hold more history than any library on Earth. Some asteroids contain grains older than the Sun itself, formed in distant stars that exploded before our solar system was even born. In these tiny specks, you hold a connection to galaxies far beyond your own. Your mind floats back to the night sky above your bed. You think of shooting stars, quick streaks of light caused by tiny meteoroids burning up in Earth's atmosphere. You realize those glowing trails are often pieces chipped from asteroids long ago, cast off in cosmic collisions. Each meteor is a brief fiery whisper of the silent rocks above, a message from the depths of time falling softly into your world. You wonder how something so small could carry such immense significance. A rock the size of a pebble can tell you stories of planetary formation, stellar death, and the birth of worlds. You picture the delicate patterns of metal and mineral inside a meteorite like frozen lightning captured in stone. You breathe in, slow and calm. The vast distances between these asteroids give you a sense of peace, a reminder of the patient, measured time of the universe. Unlike the rush of your daily life, these rocks have moved slowly, steadily, for billions of years, tracing paths older than mountains, rivers, or civilizations. Your mind drifts to the telescopes on Earth, scanning the sky every night for these quiet travelers. Astronomers chart their orbits with care, giving them names and numbers like calling roll in a cosmic classroom. You think of the excitement each time a new asteroid is discovered, a small silent stone no one had ever seen, suddenly recognized and added to humanity's growing map of the solar system. You feel a gentle curiosity bloom inside you. What would it be like to stand on an asteroid, to feel its feeble gravity barely tugging at your feet, to look out and see the sun as a brilliant star in the inky black? You imagine your shadow stretching across a grey rocky plain untouched since the birth of the solar system, a place where time moves differently, where every grain of dust has waited patiently for billions of years. You begin to understand why some dream of mining these asteroids, of harvesting their metals and bringing treasures back to Earth. You picture robotic probes drifting close, landing delicately, their mechanical arms reaching for precious ores. You see visions of spaceports and refineries orbiting the sun, humans carving wealth from silent stones. Yet you also sense the quiet dignity of these rocks, their right to exist in peace, their role as keepers of cosmic memory. You wonder if mining them would erase stories written in their fractures and craters. Would extracting their metals cost us knowledge we can never reclaim? Your breath moves like a soft tide in and out as these thoughts swirl through your mind. You notice how the silence of space is not empty but full of slow motion, of subtle gravities, of drifting stones whispering ancient secrets. You feel your own heart slowing to match this cosmic rhythm, your body relaxing into the bed, your thoughts floating with the rocks. You think of the asteroid Bennu, visited by NASA's OSIRIS-REx mission, a small diamond-shaped world 200 million miles from Earth. You remember how scientists watched in wonder as the spacecraft sampled Bennu's surface, scooping dust and pebbles billions of years old. You imagine the feeling of holding those grains, knowing they contain the chemistry of the early solar system. You sense the delicate balance of exploration, the hunger to know and the care not to destroy. You see humanity's reflection in these rocks, our curiosity, our ambition, our moments of wisdom and recklessness. You feel a deep connection to the silent rocks above, as if they watch over you. Their unblinking presence a reminder of how brief and bright your own life is in the grand timeline of the cosmos. They drift on, unhurried and unchanging, teaching you to breathe, to pause, to see beauty in stillness. You let your mind settle, feeling gratitude for these ancient travelers and the stories they carry. You think of the next chapter in your journey, where you will learn how stars forge metals that hide in these asteroids, and how every golden thread begins in the heart of an exploding star. Tonight, you begin your journey into their silent cosmic ballet. You feel the story of every precious metal begin here, in the slow dance of nuclear fusion. Hydrogen fuses into helium, releasing energy that shines across the universe. But as the star ages, its core grows hotter still, forging heavier elements, carbon, oxygen, silicon, building each layer like an onion of cosmic possibility. You realize how stars are not just pinpoints of light in your night sky, but colossal forges crafting the very atoms that make your bones, your blood, and your world. You drift deeper into the core, where the pressure builds until it can no longer hold itself together. You sense the star nearing its final breath, its life measured not in heartbeats, but in millions of years of brilliance. And then, in an instant, more powerful than anything you could ever feel on Earth, the star collapses inward and explodes outward in a supernova, a single, deafening exhalation of light and energy. Your mind tries to hold the scale of this event, a flash so bright it can outshine an entire galaxy, a shockwave that tears apart the star's body, scattering its guts into the cosmos. You imagine atoms of iron, nickel, platinum, and gold flung across light years, particles of future treasure carried on expanding shells of gas and dust. Each shimmering fleck of gold in your jewelry began here, born from a star's death throes. You picture those metals drifting through space, mixing with clouds of gas, condensing into grains that stick together. You see a swirling disk of material circling a newborn star, grains of stardust clumping into pebbles, pebbles into boulders, boulders into planetesimals, the seeds of planets and asteroids. You feel how every asteroid you imagined in the last chapter carries the fingerprints of these ancient explosions. Your thoughts sway with the slow rhythm of cosmic time. Millions of years pass in each breath you take. Supernovae light the darkness, then fade, their remnants cooling into clouds rich with heavy elements. You feel the universe slowly enriching itself star by star until entire generations of stars live and die, each one adding new layers of complexity to the cosmic soup. You picture a cosmic chain of life, the first stars forging basic elements, their explosion seeding galaxies, new stars forming from those clouds, and the process repeating, each time building heavier and rarer materials. Your mind rests on neutron stars, the collapsed cores of massive supernovae so dense that a teaspoon would weigh more than a mountain. Sometimes these ultra-dense remnants spiral toward each other in a deadly dance, finally merging in a cataclysmic explosion called a kilonova. You sense the raw power of these events, even more intense than a supernova, forging vast amounts of gold, platinum, and other precious metals in mere seconds. You feel a quiet amazement that the rings on your fingers, the metal contacts in your electronics, the platinum in satellites circling Earth, all once lived as stardust created in violent cosmic collisions. Each precious element is a relic of forces beyond your imagination, each atom older than the Earth itself. You let this thought flow through you like a calming tide. The most treasured metals in human history are not just rare on Earth, they are rare across the entire universe. Their scarcity speaks to the intensity of the events needed to create them. Each gram of gold represents an extraordinary chapter of cosmic violence followed by eons of quiet drift through space. As you breathe deeply, you feel the strange intimacy of this realization. Every time you hold something made of these metals, you touch the remains of a star's life and death. You understand how the first humans who discovered shiny gold nuggets or dense lumps of iron meteorites were unknowingly connecting with the grandest cycles of creation. Your mind drifts to Earth's formation, where swirling debris, heavy with these precious metals, collided over millions of years. Asteroids rich in iron, nickel, and rare elements bombarded the growing planet, delivering treasures that sank deep into Earth's core or settled in pockets within its crust. You imagine molten rocks and glowing lava absorbing these metals, folding them into the foundations of continents. Your thoughts float to the moon, where some impacts may have splashed metal-rich material into orbit, helping create its surface layers. You sense the cosmic choreography that left traces of stardust both on Earth and the moon, traces that miners now dream of reclaiming in the silence of space. You remember stories of ancient civilizations that treasured gold not just for its beauty, but for the sense of mystery it inspired. They felt it was something beyond ordinary stone, something eternal, unchanging, untainted by time or decay. Now you know why. Gold is older than any civilization, older even than our planet. It is an ancient survivor of cosmic history. You feel your breath slow, in tune with the vast patience of the universe. Billions of years passed before the elements in your jewelry or phone could even exist. You see yourself as part of that timeline, a brief but brilliant moment in a chain of stars and worlds that stretches backward and forward through deep time. Your thoughts settle back into the present. You imagine the next chapter of your journey, how these ancient metals floating silently in asteroids and lunar soil are stirring new dreams of exploration and wealth. Who will reach these riches first? How will humanity handle treasures forged in the hearts of dying stars? Your heart quiets as you carry this question into sleep. You feel the softness of your pillow, the comfort of your bed, and the steady rhythm of your breathing. Above you, in the infinite dark, the seeds of gold and platinum drift on, silent witnesses to creation, waiting patiently for curious minds to find them. Tonight you drift from the fiery birthplaces of metals into the moon's quiet plains, where dreams of cosmic mining begin to take shape. You rest quietly in the darkness. Yes. Your breath slow and calm as you drift from the blazing birthplaces of metals into the cold, silent expanse where those ancient elements have found a final resting place. You find yourself floating once more among the asteroids, these quiet stones that circle the sun like guardians of time. You picture each asteroid as a fossil, a frozen relic of the solar system's birth. Their rough surfaces bear the scars of countless collisions. Their cores hide records of the chaotic days when planets were still gathering their mass, when gravity was carving orbits and carving destinies. You sense how the smallest crack or crater might hold secrets about the first moments of our cosmic neighborhood. Your mind lingers on the fact that asteroids are not just leftover debris. They are messengers from a time before Earth's mountains rose, before oceans formed, before even the moon found its place in the sky. Each stone carries the original chemistry of the solar nebula, the cloud of dust and gas that spun into the sun and its family of planets. You breathe deeply, feeling time stretch with each inhale, as if your heartbeat slows to match the patient drift of these ancient bodies. You sense how some asteroids have remained almost unchanged for over 4.5 billion years, untouched by weather, water, or the constant shifting that erases Earth's oldest memories. These rocks remember everything. Your mind floats to the asteroid Ryugu, visited by Japan's Hayabusa 2 mission. You picture the spacecraft touching down softly on its dark surface, gathering grains that formed before Earth existed. You imagine yourself holding those specks in your palm, black and rough, yet more ancient than any fossil on Earth, pieces of the raw ingredients from which your planet, your body, and your breath were made. You think of the asteroid Bennu, its surface like a field of broken stones scattered by time. NASA's OSIRIS-REx captured images of boulders shaped by billions of years of quiet collisions. You drift among these rocks in your mind, floating between shadows cast by the low sun, each pebble whispering a story older than life. Your thoughts linger on carbonaceous chondrites, a class of dark, primitive meteorites that have fallen to Earth from these same asteroids. Scientists have found amino acids and organic compounds in them, the building blocks of life itself. You wonder if these ancient treasures seeded Earth's oceans with the first hints of biology, sparking the slow emergence of creatures that would someday look up in wonder. You sense the gentle awe of knowing that your own existence may owe a quiet debt to these dark stones drifting through space. Each one a possibility, each one a chance encounter that could change the story of a planet forever. You breathe in slowly as you picture the diversity of asteroids, some rich in metals, some made almost entirely of ice, others a mix of rock and carbon compounds. Some are solid, others are loose piles of rubble held together by gravity's delicate touch. You feel how this variety tells a story of where they formed, how they travelled, and what they have seen. Your mind floats past Vesta, one of the largest asteroids, its surface marked by immense craters from ancient impacts. You see its bright patches of basalt, frozen lava that hints at a once molten past. You feel how Vesta stands as a reminder of what might have been, a protoplanet that almost became a world, but never gathered enough mass to cross the threshold. You imagine Themis, a darker, icier asteroid that orbits quietly in the outer belt. You think of its surface coated in water ice and organic materials, hinting that even in the cold depths of the asteroid belt, the seeds of life drift patiently, waiting for a spark. You feel your breath slow, your mind suspended in the rhythm of their silent orbits. Time loses its sharp edges here. Decades, centuries, and millennia blur into gentle ripples of gravitational dance. Each asteroid circles the sun with quiet loyalty, tracing paths that only change under the occasional nudge of a collision or the subtle pull of a passing planet. You let your mind drift to Earth's night sky, remembering that meteor showers are the visible reminders of these ancient stones. When you watch shooting stars, you see tiny fragments of asteroids burning bright for a second before fading to ash. Each streak of light is a brief fiery echo of the ancient past, a reminder that cosmic time is always flowing through your skies. You think of how meteorites recovered on Earth provide scientists with windows into the birth of the solar system. Some of these rocks contain tiny diamond crystals formed in the hearts of dying stars, stardust preserved across the galaxy, carried in the bellies of asteroids until they fell to our world. You imagine holding one of these diamonds, its facets reflecting light and time itself. You feel how your heartbeat syncs with the slow turning of these stones, each rotation a steady drumbeat older than any human civilization. You realize that studying them is like reading the first pages of a book that never ends, each new discovery adding to a story that spans the life of stars, the creation of planets, and the emergence of life. You breathe deeply, your chest rising and falling like the gentle tides of deep time. You picture the early solar system as a chaotic, swirling storm of rocks and ice, collisions shaping moons, planets, and asteroids. You see fragments of Mars-sized bodies crashing together, molten impacts sending shockwaves across the young solar system, leaving behind scars that still mark these ancient stones. You feel the stillness of space settle into your body as you drift deeper into the thought of asteroids as cosmic time capsules. Their surfaces are like pages of stone, each crater a word, each ridge a sentence, each broken boulder a chapter written by gravity and time. You wonder what stories these pages tell, stories of a sun finding its brightness, of swirling chaos calming into orbits, of possibilities lost and possibilities born. You let your thoughts turn to the future, when astronauts or robotic probes may mine these ancient treasures. You picture the first human footsteps on an asteroid, boots sinking gently into fine dust that has never felt touch. You imagine the quiet thrill of standing on a stone older than Earth, seeing the sun and stars from a place no one has ever been. You sense the questions rising softly in your heart. What responsibilities come with touching these time capsules? What lessons will they teach you about Earth's origins, about life's fragile emergence, about the fine balance of chance and inevitability in the cosmos? You let your breath slow, each inhale drawing you deeper into a sense of connection with these drifting stones. You feel how they remind you that everything you know, everything you love, everything you are, began with the quiet, patient chemistry of ancient rocks floating in cold space. You sense how this chapter's journey is guiding you gently to the moon's silent surface, where dreams of mining take their first real shape. You let your thoughts linger on the question of what waits in those glittering lunar plains and who will claim the treasures hidden there. Your heart beats in sync with the slow rhythm of the universe. You drift gently from the ancient asteroids back toward Earth, but instead of landing on familiar soil, your journey pauses above the moon's pale, cratered face. You feel your breath slow as you imagine yourself descending softly onto its surface. your boots pressing into a fine grey powder that has never known wind or rain. You sense the silence of the lunar landscape pressing around you, deeper and more complete than any quiet you have ever known. Here, there is no breeze to rustle your hair, no rustling leaves, no distant hum of life. Only your own breathing fills the void, a soft reminder of your fragile existence in this timeless place. You picture yourself standing near the moon's south pole, where long shadows stretch across jagged ridges and craters. Some of these craters are so deep they have never felt the touch of sunlight. You imagine the cold darkness hiding secrets of ice and minerals, treasures locked away for billions of years. You let your mind wander across the highlands, where bright rocky plains of anorthosite sparkle faintly under the harsh glare of the sun. You picture darker, flatter regions called Lunar Maria, ancient basalt plains formed by massive impacts and volcanic flows, their surfaces preserving the scars of cataclysms older than Earth's continents. You feel a quiet thrill in your chest as you remember that the moon was once part of Earth, torn away in a colossal collision with a Mars-sized body. The molten debris coalesced into the silvery world you see today, still orbiting your planet as a silent partner, its surface frozen in a record of solar system history. You imagine crouching beside a small crater, running your gloved fingers through the powdery regolith. Each grain is a fragment of rock shattered by meteor impacts, a mixture of tiny glass beads formed in the heat of collisions and specks of metal delivered by asteroids. You sense how these grains hold stories of a restless past, their chemistry shaped by impacts that melted, vaporized, and rearranged the moon's crust. Your thoughts turn to the moon's hidden riches. You picture veins of valuable metals like titanium and rare earth elements woven into the crust. You think of ilmenite, a black mineral rich in titanium and iron, scattered in lunar basalts. These dark rocks sparkle faintly like cosmic ore, hinting at the possibility of extracting metals for building tools, spacecraft, or future habitats. You drift slowly through the thought of helium-3, a rare isotope carried by the solar wind and trapped in lunar soil over billions of years. Scientists dream of mining this isotope for clean nuclear fusion, imagining reactors that could power cities on Earth or settlements on Mars. You feel the weight of this possibility, the potential of the moon not just as a place to visit, but as a resource that could change the course of civilization. You breathe deeply, letting your mind rest on the moon's silent beauty. You picture Earth hanging above you in a black sky, a glowing blue and white marble that spins slowly. You feel a pang of homesickness for oceans and clouds, for the warmth of sunlight filtered through air. Yet standing here among the moon's quiet plains, you sense how this place pulls at human hearts with promises of adventure, discovery, and unimaginable reward. Your thoughts shift to the missions that first revealed these secrets. You see the Apollo astronauts bouncing across the surface in their bulky suits, gathering samples, setting up experiments, leaving boot prints that remain perfectly preserved to this day. You remember the excitement of the first moon rocks brought home, their chemistry revealing that the moon's interior contains metals in higher concentrations than many places on Earth. You imagine what it would feel like to spend a night in a lunar habitat, your sleep punctuated by the slow ticking of life support systems. Outside your window, the sun sets not in minutes but in days, casting long shadows that stretch for miles. The stars remain unblinking in the black sky, and you sense how time feels different here, slower, more patient, like the rocks themselves. You let your breath match the moon's stillness, each inhale and exhale a gentle wave washing over your mind. You think of lunar pits, caves formed by collapsed lava tubes, large enough to shelter entire cities from cosmic radiation and micrometeorites. You picture explorers descending into these dark hollows, lights cutting through ancient darkness, footsteps echoing in chambers untouched since the moon's fiery youth. You imagine robotic rovers crawling methodically across the regolith, scanning for hidden seams of precious metals, sampling soil for helium-3, and mapping resources that could sustain a permanent human presence. You sense the delicate dance of technology and ambition, the careful balance between exploration and exploitation. Your mind wanders to the dreams of private companies and space agencies planning to mine the moon. You picture heavy landers touching down with drills, solar panels unfolding like petals, conveyor belts carrying regolith to processing modules. You feel both hope and caution stirring inside you. Hope for a new age of exploration, and caution that we do not repeat the mistakes made in Earth's forests, mountains, and oceans. You remember that the moon has no atmosphere, no wind to erase footprints or scars of mining. Every mark left here will remain for millions of years. You feel the quiet responsibility this brings, a reminder that every action taken on the moon writes a chapter of humanity's legacy in the solar system. You sense how lunar mining could unlock resources for building fuel depots, life support systems, and spacecraft capable of carrying people deeper into the solar system. You imagine the moon becoming a stepping stone to Mars, the asteroid belt, and beyond, its veins of metal and helium-3 fueling journeys that could spread life across the stars. You think of how the moon's slow rotation creates long nights and days, each lasting about 2 weeks. You picture astronauts watching Earthrise, the glowing curve of your world emerging above the horizon, like a silent promise of home. You let this image settle in your heart, a reminder of how, even as we look outward, we remain forever tied to the world that gave us life. You let your breath grow soft, your mind floating through the moon's stillness. You feel how this ancient cratered face, carried by eons of impacts, stands as a monument to the power of time and the resilience of stone. You sense that mining these quiet plains is not only a technical challenge, but a moral one, a question of how we treat the places that reveal our past and promise our future. You imagine standing alone near a towering crater rim as the sun sets, shadows lengthening across broken rock. The temperature plummets hundreds of degrees in moments, and you feel the cold creeping through your suit. Above you, stars glitter unblinking in airless darkness. You think of all those who will come after you, who might find these same views, and wonder who first stood here, dreaming of cosmic wealth. You breathe deeply, each inhale filled with the hush of lunar dust, each exhale a silent wish for wisdom in the choices ahead. You think of how the moon's glittering veins could unite nations in cooperation or divide them in competition. How this quiet world could teach us patience or tempt us into haste. Your thoughts linger on who might claim this quiet wealth. You breathe slowly, your mind still drifting in the moon's pale silence, when a new thought begins to bloom, a memory of the first people who dared to dream of reaching beyond Earth, of staking a claim among the stars. You sense the soft spark of human curiosity lighting up dark skies, igniting a journey that would stretch beyond imagination. You picture these early dreamers as cosmic prospectors, their minds filled with visions of metal-rich asteroids and frozen lunar plains. They carried no pickaxes or lanterns, but charts, equations, and restless ambition. Their words, written in quiet offices or whispered into night skies, shimmer in your mind like constellations of possibility. You think of Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, the Russian schoolteacher who, in the late 19th century, dared to imagine rockets rising into space. You see his delicate sketches of spacecraft, his careful calculations proving that escaping Earth's gravity was not madness, but mathematics. You feel his quiet wonder, his certainty that someday humans would leave the cradle of Earth. You drift to the early 20th century when scientists and science fiction writers began to weave tales of mining the moon and asteroids. You sense how dreams of cosmic riches danced between pages of pulp magazines and the halls of universities. You feel how these stories inspired generations of engineers and explorers, planting seeds of possibility in curious minds. Your breath settles as you picture the space-age dawn. Rockets pierce the atmosphere, satellites circle the globe, humans leave footprints on the moon. You think of engineers in white shirts and black ties, their slide rules clicking as they trace the paths of spacecraft across chalkboards and computer screens. You feel their excitement ripple through the decades, each mission a step closer to the stars. You imagine the first serious studies of asteroid mining in the 1970s, when scientists began to calculate the cost of bringing metals from space compared to digging deeper on Earth. You see their typed reports and faded slides showing diagrams of robotic miners, solar-powered refineries and orbital smelters. You feel the quiet tension of those early discussions, part science fiction, always tethered to a dream of more. Your mind drifts to Gerard K. O'Neill, the physicist who proposed vast space habitats, rotating cylinders that could house thousands of people in Earth-like environments. You imagine these shining worlds orbiting among asteroids supplied by streams of mined metals, gardens grown under artificial suns. You sense how O'Neill's vision gave cosmic mining a purpose beyond wealth, a future where humanity could thrive beyond Earth. You breathe deeply, letting your thoughts follow the path of pioneers like Peter Glaser, who imagined harvesting solar power in orbit and beaming energy to Earth. You feel how mining the moon's metals and building massive space-based solar arrays seemed, even then, like an elegant solution to Earth's growing hunger for energy. You sense the shift into the 21st century when private companies began to turn these sketches into concrete plans. You picture small teams of engineers sketching spacecraft with drills and sample collectors, investors poring over glossy proposals promising platinum and rare elements from asteroids. You feel the thrill of these early ventures, balanced by the immense risks of reaching for riches floating millions of kilometers away. You see names like Planetary Resources and Deep Space Industries, their announcements bright with ambition, their plans dancing just beyond the edge of current technology. You picture compact telescopes scanning the skies for near-Earth asteroids, each detection a potential fortune waiting in silent darkness. You sense how these prospectors shifted the conversation from dreams to strategies, from wishful thinking to engineering challenges. Your mind floats to recent missions like Japan's Hayabusa and NASA's OSIRIS-REx, each a proof of concept that cosmic mining could move from theory to practice. You imagine tiny spacecraft arriving at distant asteroids, mapping their surfaces, sampling their dust, and sending grains of ancient material back to Earth. You feel how these missions carry the legacy of early dreamers, turning impossible ideas into tangible steps. You let your breath grow soft, matching the slow rhythm of history unfolding. You think of the excitement and fear these pioneers must have felt under the starlit canopy. Excitement for the treasures they might find, fear of the obstacles that could end their quests before they began. You sense how each figure, from Tsiolkovsky to today's engineers, carried the same quiet faith that the stars hold more than mystery. They hold a future. You drift through moments of triumph and failure, rocket explosions lighting dark skies, silent satellites lost in endless night, the long years between breakthroughs. You feel how each setback left lessons etched into the story of cosmic exploration, lessons that shaped safer, stronger, smarter missions. Your thoughts settle on the delicate tension in every prospector's mind, the balance between discovery and greed. You sense how early explorers dreamed of abundance, metals to build cities in space, water to fuel rockets, ice to sustain life. Yet you feel the quiet warning in these dreams, a reminder of Earth's own past, where the quest for resources sometimes led to conflict, waste, and regret. You breathe deeply, letting this awareness fold gently into your thoughts. You sense how the first cosmic prospector's greatest contribution was not what they mined, but what they imagined. A new chapter for humanity, one that expanded our horizons beyond the thin blue shell of our atmosphere. You see how their daring questions open doors to possibilities still waiting among the stars. Your mind floats back to the moon's surface, to the footprints left by Apollo astronauts, some of the earliest prospectors in space. You imagine them standing quietly beside their lunar rover, gazing across the stark sunlit plains, knowing they were the first humans to touch this ancient world. You sense their wonder mixing with the knowledge that someday others might return to dig deeper, to stay longer, to build homes among the silent craters. You feel the weight of these pioneers' hopes pressing softly on your chest, a comforting sense of continuity between those first sketches and the rockets rising today. You imagine the countless hands and minds who carried these ideas forward, engineers, scientists, artists, storytellers, each adding a small spark to the growing light of exploration. You let your breath slow, your body sinking deeper into comfort, as you picture future prospectors stepping onto asteroids, walking across worlds that float like silent jewels in endless night. You feel their excitement and fear, the quiet thrill of standing somewhere no one has ever stood, the gentle terror of the unknown, and the powerful pull of possibilities glittering among the stars. You sense how these dreamers will shape what comes next, what laws will guide them, What ethics will protect the quiet places of space? What choices will define humanity's legacy beyond Earth? You realize that in their hands, the silent rocks and glittering metals you've drifted among hold both promise and peril, depending on how gently we step into the cosmic darkness. Your breath flows like soft waves as your mind begins to drift toward the next chapter, where laws written long before mining seemed real wait quietly among treaties, ambitions, and the question of who truly owns the stars. You breathe deeply, your mind still glowing with the quiet courage of the first cosmic prospectors. As your thoughts drift beyond footprints and mining drills, you feel a new question settle gently into your heart. Who decides what belongs to whom out there in the silent darkness beyond Earth's skies? You sense treaties floating like pale ghosts among the stars, their words written by people who could only dream of touching space, long before rockets carried humans beyond the atmosphere. You imagine dusty conference rooms, earnest diplomats huddled over coffee-stained papers, their pens etching principles they hoped would guide humanity's steps among the stars. Your thoughts settle on the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, the oldest and most important of these agreements. You picture world leaders of the Cold War era, eyes weary with fear of nuclear conflict, sitting down together to promise that space would remain free for exploration by all, a place beyond national borders, beyond claims of empire. You sense their quiet hope that space might become a realm of peace, not another battlefield. You drift through the treaty's words like their stars. The exploration and use of outer space shall be carried out for the benefit of all countries. Outer space, including the moon and other celestial bodies, is not subject to national appropriation by claim of sovereignty, by means of use or occupation, or by any other means. You feel the weight of these lines, a promise that the heavens belong to no single nation. You imagine the 1979 Moon Agreement, written with similar hopes, declaring that the moon's resources are the common heritage of mankind. Yet you sense the uneasy silence that followed. The major spacefaring nations refused to sign, unwilling to bind themselves to rules limiting their ambitions. You picture copies of the agreement gathering dust, its pages like forgotten prayers in an empty church. Your breath slows as you drift among newer ideas. Laws passed by countries granting their citizens the right to own resources mined from space. You think of the United States Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act of 2015, allowing American companies to claim ownership of extracted minerals. You feel how this law glows like a spark, both of opportunity and of conflict, igniting debates about fairness, sovereignty, and the future of space. You sense Luxembourg, a small European nation, stepping boldly into the cosmic frontier, passing similar laws to attract asteroid mining companies. You picture lawmakers sitting in ornate chambers far from launch pads, crafting rules for riches they hope will one day flow from silent rocks drifting between planets. Your mind drifts over these conflicting visions, the treaties calling for shared benefit, the national laws encouraging private claims. You feel the delicate tension between ideals written in a more hopeful time and the practical ambitions of companies and countries hungry for rare metals and new markets. You breathe softly as you think of the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, a place where diplomats gather each year to share plans, raise concerns, and struggle to find common ground. You imagine their conversations swirling like quiet currents under bright lights, filled with cautious optimism and hidden doubts. You sense how international law drifts like thin mist over the firm realities of rockets and drills. The treaties say no one can own the moon or Mars, yet no one can stop you from bringing home what you find there. You feel the ambiguity that leaves so many questions unanswered. Who enforces these laws? What if nations disagree? Who protects fragile lunar sites like the Apollo landing spots from becoming tourist traps or mining quarries? You think of the Artemis Accords, signed by nations partnering with NASA's return to the moon. You picture their words shimmering with both promise and uncertainty, agreements to share scientific data, to preserve historic sites, to avoid harmful interference. Yet you feel the quiet worry that these voluntary accords may not be enough when powerful interests collide in the darkness. Your breath deepens as you imagine disputes among countries staking claims on the same icy crater or asteroid. You see small disagreements growing into sharp conflicts, words turning to threats, spacecraft built not for exploration but for defense. You sense how fragile the dream of peaceful cooperation can be when rare resources and national pride hang in the balance. You let your thoughts drift back to Earth's own history, the frontiers opened by explorers who sometimes brought more suffering than progress, the rivers and mountains carved up by lines on maps, the forest stripped bare without thought for tomorrow. You feel a quiet fear that these old patterns could find new life in the vacuum of space, repeating mistakes on a cosmic scale. Your mind floats over the fragile hope that we might choose differently this time, that by learning from Earth's past, we might build a future in space guided by patience, respect, and humility. You sense how new generations of lawmakers, engineers, and dreamers could write rules not only to protect profits, but to protect the quiet wonders of distant worlds. You picture international courts adapting to handle disputes among asteroid miners, lunar settlers, and space tourists. You imagine lawyers poring over contracts that describe territories measured in kilometers of regolith or tons of helium-3. You feel how these words, dry and precise, carry the power to shape whether space becomes a realm of peace or a new, Wild West. You breathe in, slow and calm, as you sense the possibility of treaties yet unwritten, agreements forged not out of fear or rivalry, but out of shared wonder for the stars. You imagine people of many nations gathering beneath one sky, their voices rising in quiet determination to build rules worthy of the grand stage on which they now stand. You let your mind rest on how even the simplest question, who owns a rock floating millions of kilometers from Earth, unfolds into a tapestry of law, history, hope, and greed. You feel how space law is not just words in dusty books, but a living conversation carried by every new mission, every probe that lands, every dream that dares to cross the void. Your breath softens as you sense the quiet brilliance of this dance between law and longing. You realize that every promise made, every agreement signed, every conflict resolved peacefully is a choice that moves humanity one step closer to a future where the stars belong to all. Your heart rests on the delicate dance between law and longing. You breathe slowly, letting the quiet gravity of laws and treaties drift from your thoughts as a new vision begins to rise. The machines, delicate and determined, that will carry our dreams into the silent dark. You picture them not as cold tools, but as fragile extensions of human hope. Small hands stretching carefully into a universe that has never known breath or thought. You feel the hush of empty space pressing softly around sleek satellites, their solar panels opening like silver wings. You watch them unfurl above Earth's shimmering curve, catching sunlight as they drift across continents and oceans. You sense the quiet purpose of each orbit, a patient loop that brings Earth's surface into focus with every pass. Your thoughts float to robotic explorers, machines that leave Earth behind entirely. You picture them sailing through the black, guided by radio whispers from mission controllers who sit in dark rooms, eyes bright with anticipation. You see the Voyager spacecraft, their golden records glinting faintly, still calling out decades after their launch, now beyond the edge of our solar system. You imagine robots landing on asteroids, their delicate legs touching down on ancient rock that has drifted undisturbed for billions of years. You feel the tense excitement of scientists watching from Earth as each maneuver unfolds. Seconds of signal delay turning every motion into an act of faith. You sense the vibration of drills biting gently into frozen stone, the quiet whir of sample collectors scooping handfuls of cosmic dust. Your breath matches the saw dance of these machines, each movement careful and precise. You see Japan's Hayabusa 2 spacecraft hovering above the asteroid Ryugu, releasing tiny rovers that hop in low gravity, cameras capturing landscapes where sunlight barely changes. You picture NASA's OSIRIS-REx stretching its arm toward Bennu, a soft kiss on a world older than Earth's mountains, collecting grains that hold the stories of solar system birth. You drift through visions of laser cutters slicing into rock, guided by algorithms trained on countless simulations. You imagine robotic arms sorting pebbles and dust, mapping minerals atom by atom, building a picture of a world so distant it could fit entirely inside a telescope's glass eye. You feel awe bloom in your chest at the quiet courage of these machines, built by hands that tremble with both fear and wonder. Your thoughts turn to the engineering marvels that make these journeys possible. Ion engines glowing with ghostly blue light, their soft acceleration pushing spacecraft across millions of kilometers with gentle persistence. You picture solar sails unfolding like thin sheets of silver, catching pressure from starlight itself, moving without fuel in a silent ballet through the void. You let your mind rest on the craft of building these machines. You imagine sterile, clean rooms where technicians clad in white gently place microchips and wires, each connection a fragile promise of survival in a place where cold, radiation, and vacuum conspire to break everything. You sense how each screw turned, each circuit soldered, is a quiet prayer for endurance far beyond Earth's comforting atmosphere. You picture 3D printers aboard future spacecraft, layering metal and plastic into replacement parts, spare tools, or entirely new machines. You imagine self-repairing systems, robots that mend themselves or each other, closing tiny cracks with precision. You sense how this ability will become essential as humanity moves deeper into the solar system, far from spare parts and rescue missions. Your breath slows as you think of swarms of small probes, each the size of a briefcase, released like seeds into space. You imagine them fanning out across asteroid belts, mapping, sampling, and sending streams of data home, You feel how the knowledge these swarms gather could weave a tapestry of our solar system more detailed than any map made before. You drift through visions of autonomous drones exploring lava tubes on the moon or caves on Mars, their lights cutting through darkness untouched since before Earth's first oceans formed. You imagine sensors tasting the thin air, sniffing for signs of water or life, sending each discovery back like a secret shared with the stars. You sense how these delicate explorers can venture where humans cannot, into crushing gravity wells, boiling radiation belts, or the endless night between worlds. You feel the quiet power of machines that do not tire, do not fear, and do not breathe, yet carry the essence of our curiosity with every silent circuit. Your thoughts wander to the minds designing these tools, engineers sketching parts that must weigh almost nothing, programmers writing code that must run flawlessly years after launch, material scientists crafting alloys that can endure both searing heat and freezing cold. You imagine late nights in labs and workshops, coffee cooling beside keyboards as teams debate how to solve problems no one has faced before. Your breath deepens as you picture these technologies not just as isolated wonders, but as threads connecting Earth to the cosmos. Each rover, satellite, and probe extends our senses and reach, pulling us gently outward from the only world we've ever known. You feel the fragile silver strands of radio waves stretching across emptiness, carrying greetings, questions, and data like whispers in an endless cathedral. You sense how these machines embody our paradox, our smallness in the face of the universe, and our boundless determination to reach into its heart. You feel the vulnerability of delicate circuits crossing radiation storms, the resilience of solar arrays unfolding in the darkness, the quiet bravery of hardware that will never come home. Your thoughts settle on how these technologies will one day build the foundation for mining asteroids and distant moons. You imagine robotic factories assembling themselves on low-gravity rocks, refining metals, storing fuel, preparing the materials for habitats and starships. You sense how these silent workers will lay the first stepping stones into the wider galaxy, long before human feet follow. You breathe in the realization that these machines do not replace us, they amplify us. Every rover's wheel turning on Mars, every drill biting into asteroid stone, every antenna reaching for distant signals. All of it reflects our shared hunger to know, to explore, and to make the impossible real. You let your mind drift to the future, when swarms of self-replicating probes might sail far beyond Pluto, each new generation building more explorers to spread through the stars. You imagine these silver threads reaching neighboring star systems, a delicate web of humanity's curiosity stretching across light years. You feel awe bloom in your chest, not just for the brilliance of these technologies, but for the fragile hands that build them, hands that tremble yet persist, that craft dreams into metal, that send quiet ambassadors to places we can only imagine. Your breath grows soft as you think of how every delicate machine brings us closer to distant worlds, how each silent journey adds one more verse to humanity's long song of wonder. You sense how these technologies are the fragile yet determined bridges connecting us to the next chapter of our cosmic story. You rest in awe of our fragile yet determined hands. You breathe slowly as your mind drifts back to Earth, to mountains carved open by dynamite, forests swallowed by open-pit mines, rivers choked with tailings of bright chemicals. You see deep craters in once green hills, dark reminders of how easily hunger for metals can become a hunger that consumes. You imagine rusted machines sleeping in abandoned mines, silent witnesses to the frenzy that once echoed in the rock. You feel how the greed and hope that once fueled them still hang in the air, ghosts of choices that left entire valleys empty of life. Your breath grows shallow as you wonder, will asteroids share this fate? You picture a small world once drifting untouched for eons, pocked with fresh scars from human machines. Dust rises into space, tiny grains lost to the void. You see gouges where metal was torn from stone, each scratch a memory of an urgent need back on Earth. You sense the loneliness of these drifting rocks, how they carried whispers of solar system birth in their silent orbits. You feel a soft ache at the thought of erasing their stories with drills and harvesters, trading their ancient secrets for metals melted into smartphones or cars. Your mind wanders to the moon, its face already marked by craters older than life itself. You imagine the first permanent mining base planting drills near shadowed craters, machines humming where the sun never shines. You feel the hush of lunar dust rising in slow motion, a grey mist that settles on spacesuits, solar panels, and fragile dreams. You breathe deeply as you consider how lunar dust is more dangerous than it appears. Razor-sharp grains that cling like static, scratching visors and clogging joints. You picture astronauts brushing the powder from their gloves, knowing each fleck carries the potential to grind machines to failure, to slip into lungs, to remind us that every environment has its silent hazards. You let your thoughts drift to Mars, a world where humans dream of building cities among red dunes. You imagine mining machines rolling across rust-coloured plains, kicking up clouds that darken skies already thin and cold. You sense how each cloud settles slowly, blanketing solar panels, changing delicate balances of heat and light. Your mind turns to the echoes of past mistakes. You think of oil spills glinting on ocean waves, of mountains stripped to bare stone, of species that vanished forever because no one asked if we should before we found out we could. You wonder if space will teach us humility or simply give us a new stage to replay old tragedies. You picture asteroid belts as cosmic reefs, each rock a quiet refuge for dust and ice, perhaps even tiny molecules that once drifted to Earth on comets. You imagine robotic harvesters scattering debris, altering orbits by mere fractions that could ripple across centuries, changing cosmic patterns we don't yet understand. You feel a gentle shiver in your chest as you realize that in space, even the smallest action can echo across vast distances and unimaginable timescales. A single nudge to an asteroid today could change its course for millennia, perhaps one day sending it hurtling toward Earth or Mars. Your breath deepens as you consider how mining operations might scatter reflective dust into the inner solar system, subtly shifting how sunlight warms planets. You imagine a veil of faint particles that dims Earth's skies or changes the glow of a sunrise. You sense how these unintended consequences could affect weather, seasons, or even life itself. Your thoughts rest on the silence of space, a silence we have never experienced on Earth. You feel the sacredness of that quiet, unmarred by engines or voices, just the soft whispers of cosmic radiation and drifting dust. You wonder what it would mean to fill that silence with the roar of machines, the hum of human industry, the endless beeping of status signals. You drift to the idea of cosmic heritage, that some worlds and objects are so ancient, so unique, that they belong not just to us, but to all time, to every creature that might one day look up in wonder. You sense how mining them might erase records of the solar system's birth, removing chapters from a book that can never be rewritten. Your breath grows softer as you think of new technologies being designed to minimize damage. Contactless extraction, using lasers or magnetic fields to tease metals from rocks without grinding them apart. Spacecraft that catch dust before it can escape. Mining strategies that move asteroids instead of destroying them. You sense these ideas shining like small hopes that we might do better this time. You imagine international agreements expanding not just to divide profits, but to protect fragile places. You picture treaties that recognize some asteroids, craters, or lunar plains as cosmic parks, set aside as sanctuaries for future generations to study or simply marvel at. Your mind wanders to the idea of planetary stewardship reaching beyond Earth, of becoming guardians of other worlds, not just owners. You feel how this idea could redefine humanity's place in the universe, not conquerors, but caretakers who leave gentle footprints wherever we go. You breathe in the possibility that mining could be done with wisdom, that we could learn from Earth's bruises before we repeat them on lifeless stones. You sense how developing new ethical guidelines, new technologies, and new ways of thinking could make our steps in the cosmos light and reverent. You let your thoughts drift through quiet visions of robots pausing to study the worlds they mine, sending data that deepens our understanding even as they extract what we need. You feel how each act of exploration could be paired with an act of preservation, each harvest balanced with gratitude. Your breath slows as you imagine children on Earth looking up at the night sky, knowing their parents' generation reached out to the asteroids and chose to leave some untouched, some wild and silent. You sense how these choices could inspire awe instead of regret, pride instead of shame. You think of the balance we must find between the hunger for resources and the humility of stewardship, between seeing asteroids as mere quarries and recognizing them as ancient storytellers of the solar system. You feel how that balance could shape the soul of our species for eons to come. Your breath grows quiet as a soft question hangs in the cosmic breeze, echoing across the silence. Can we remember what we owe to the worlds we touch? Your breath grows quiet as a soft question hangs in the cosmic breeze, echoing across the silence. Can we remember what we owe to the worlds we touch? From this question, your mind drifts gently outward, floating into a sea of voices that flicker like distant stars, some bright with urgency, others cold with calculation. You hear the hum of debate stretching from conference halls on Earth to the empty plains of the moon. You sense the tangle of words and intentions, lawyers citing treaties written before humans stepped into space, entrepreneurs dreaming of private empires among the asteroids, nations whispering of prestige and power. You picture each argument as a point of light scattered across a dark canvas. Some burn fierce and fast like meteors of greed. Others glow softly with hope for a fair and shared future. All of them orbit one question: who owns what lies beyond Earth? Your thoughts drift to the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, a fragile promise made in a world still trembling from war and rivalry. You feel its words like a gentle breeze. Space shall be the province of all humankind. The moon and celestial bodies are not subject to national appropriation. You sense the idealism that carried those words across oceans and iron curtains. You let your mind rest on how this treaty, signed before the first moon landing, was born from fear as much as hope. You picture tense faces in meeting rooms, memories of mushroom clouds fresh in their minds, agreeing that space must not become another battlefield. You sense how their signatures were quiet prayers for peace among the stars. Your breath slows as you wonder how these old words apply today. You imagine sleek spacecraft bearing corporate logos instead of flags, contracts written in boardrooms promising profits from metal harvested beyond Earth. You feel how these ambitions stretch the meaning of treaties drafted in an era of black and white televisions and rotary phones. Your thoughts drift to the Moon Agreement of 1979, an attempt to go further, to say the moon's resources are the common heritage of humankind. You sense how few nations signed it, how the great powers and rising economies left their names absent, unwilling to bind themselves to promises that might limit future gains. You breathe deeply as you picture companies filing claims on tiny asteroids, each rock no larger than a mountain, yet carrying riches worth billions. You imagine teams of lawyers arguing that if no nation owns an asteroid, a private company may stake a claim, like prospectors planting flags on empty prairies. You feel how this logic walks a narrow path between ambition and exploitation. Your thoughts linger on the idea of the cosmic commons, the belief that space belongs to no one and thus to everyone. You picture children in every country looking up at the same night sky, dreaming equally of adventure among the stars. You sense the quiet unfairness that could bloom if only a few powerful nations or companies own the means to reach and mine these distant worlds. You drift to the conversations unfolding now in quiet halls of the United Nations, in small offices of space agencies, in conference calls between startup founders and investors. You hear voices debating whether to update the Outer Space Treaty or let it remain a relic, whether to establish new rules for sharing profits or leave each actor to claim what they can reach. Your breath grows soft as you imagine the first lawsuit over ownership of a chunk of asteroid metal returned to Earth. The first court to decide whether it belongs to the nation that launched the mission, the company that funded it, or perhaps no one at all. You sense how these decisions could ripple across future centuries, setting precedents for entire industries in the void. You picture lawyers and ethicists arguing over words like province, heritage, and appropriation, each definition shifting like moonlight on water. You feel how language, so fragile and powerful, will shape who gains and who is left behind as humanity steps beyond Earth. Your thoughts drift to the philosophical heart of the debate. Does reaching something give the right to own it? You imagine explorers planting flags on new continents, ships arriving on unknown shores, each act echoing through history with both pride and regret. You sense how space offers a chance to write a new story as thought, or repeat old ones. You breathe deeply as you consider nations that feel excluded from the new space race, countries still struggling with poverty or conflict, whose people look up at the same moon but have no rockets to reach it. You sense how decisions made today about ownership could either deepen divides or build bridges across cultures and generations. Your mind wanders through visions of spaceports rising in unexpected places, deserts in Africa, islands in the Pacific, frozen plains in South America. You imagine a future where every continent launches its own explorers, sharing both risks and rewards. You feel how this vision could transform the question of ownership into one of partnership. You let your thoughts hover over proposals for resource-sharing agreements, royalties paid by miners to a global fund that supports education or environmental protection back on Earth. You imagine a system where profits from space help heal wounds on the only planet we can call home. You sense how fragile and beautiful this possibility is, like frost on a morning window. You drift to the idea of granting ownership only to those who use resources responsibly, rewarding companies that extract without destroying, that preserve the heritage of ancient rocks while gathering what humanity needs. You feel how this idea could encourage stewardship instead of exploitation, a new code of cosmic ethics. Your breath grows quiet as you imagine a future in which conflicts over mining rights erupt into wars. Satellites disabled, spacecraft sabotaged, lunar bases threatened. You sense how quickly the dream of space as a place of peace could fracture if greed outpaces wisdom. You picture peaceful alternatives, international coalitions overseeing asteroid mining, lunar councils ensuring all voices are heard before new ventures begin. You feel how such collaborations could make space exploration a shared human triumph rather than a scramble for spoils. Your mind settles on the realization that ownership is not just about property but power. You sense how decisions about who holds the claim will shape who benefits from space, who sets the rules, who tells the stories of humanity's steps beyond Earth. You feel the weight of these choices pressing softly against your chest, like the gravity of a small moon. Your thoughts drift to the soft glow of Earth seen from orbit, a reminder that we all share one fragile home, even as we dream of others. You imagine a night sky where no single nation or corporation claims the stars, but where every person feels a quiet belonging to the cosmos. Your breath slows as you sense how the answer to who holds the claim will echo beyond courtrooms and conference tables, reaching into the hearts of future generations who will inherit both our triumphs and mistakes among the stars. Your thoughts grow softer, settling like stardust on the gentle question, can we learn to share what lies beyond the sky? Or will we let old patterns of division and greed shape our future in the cosmos? From this quiet question, a deeper current begins to stir in your heart. You feel the weight of every choice we make among the stars, as if each decision echoes far beyond contracts or profits. You sense how the universe, in its vast silence, holds not only riches, but a profound invitation to grow wiser than we have been before. Your breath deepens as you imagine standing on a lonely asteroid, his dusty surface untouched for billions of years. You sense how your presence alone changes it, How even the softest footprint or the smallest drill mark becomes a new chapter in the story of something older than life itself. You drift to the idea that some places should remain untouched, sacred in their silence. You picture craters on the moon that have never felt sunlight, caves on Mars where the air has never stirred, icy worlds at the edges of the solar system that may hold clues to life's beginnings. You wonder if our hunger for resources should bow before the mystery of these ancient places. Your mind wanders to the thought of cosmic heritage, the idea that celestial bodies belong not only to us, but to all who will come after. You sense how decisions made in our time will ripple outward across centuries, shaping what future explorers find, a cosmos scarred by careless extraction, or a universe still full of secrets waiting to be discovered. You breathe softly as you imagine how our ethics could evolve as we step farther from Earth. You sense the need for a new kind of humility, one that recognizes how small we are among the stars, and how powerful even our smallest actions can be. You feel how this humility could become the foundation of a cosmic stewardship, a quiet promise to tread lightly on worlds we barely understand. Your thoughts drift to Earth's sacred places, mountains revered for millennia, forests where silence is prayer, rivers believed to carry the breath of spirits. You picture the reverence humans have long felt for certain landscapes, and you wonder if we could learn to carry that same respect beyond Earth's skies. Your mind rests on the question of what makes a place sacred. Is it life that gives meaning to stone and dust? Or can age itself, the sheer immensity of time held in a crater or a comet, inspire awe and care? You sense how ethics among the stars might begin with recognizing the value in silence, the holiness of places untouched by noise or haste. You breathe in the possibility that our first steps beyond Earth could become a chance to build new moral foundations. You imagine a generation of spacefarers taught not only how to extract resources, but how to listen to the quiet of alien worlds, how to study before they disturb, how to ask if mining is truly needed before drills ever spin. Your thoughts turn to the stories we tell ourselves about progress. You remember how on Earth, conquest and consumption often wore the name of advancement. You sense how in space we might choose a different narrative, one where wisdom outruns greed, where exploration brings knowledge before riches, where reverence grows faster than ambition. You drift through the idea of planetary parks, regions of the moon, Mars, or asteroids declared off limits to mining, set aside as cosmic sanctuaries. You feel how these protected spaces could offer future generations places to study unspoiled records of the solar system's birth, or simply to stand in wonder at what has never changed. You breathe deeply as you imagine agreements among nations and companies, not just to divide profits but to define responsibilities, to repair what they harm, to share what they learn, to teach those who come next how to balance need with respect. You sense how these agreements could weave a quiet web of accountability across the void. Your mind lingers on the question of consent. Though worlds cannot speak, do we owe them the courtesy of careful thought before we take? You feel the gentle discomfort of realizing how easy it is to see lifeless rocks as empty, yet how much we might lose if we never pause to wonder what stories they still hold. You sense how ethics among the stars might mirror ethics on Earth, but also stretch beyond them. You imagine laws and customs built not only to protect profit or peace, but to nurture curiosity, humility, and gratitude. You picture codes of conduct that encourage explorers to share data, to avoid contaminating other worlds, to respect the possibility that even in silence there may be meaning. Your breath softens as you consider the ethics of time, how mining an asteroid today could erase information about the solar system's past, or change the possibilities for science tomorrow. You feel how cosmic stewardship must include patience, the willingness to leave some mysteries untouched until we are better able to understand them. Your thoughts settle on the fragile line between survival and greed. You recognize that in the emergencies, mining resources in space could one day save lives or even species, providing water, oxygen, or shelter far from Earth. You sense how the ethics of necessity can differ from the ethics of profit, and how discerning between the two will shape our future among the stars. You drift to visions of communities of scientists, philosophers, and artists helping to guide mining policies, reminding engineers and investors that not all value can be measured in kilograms of metal. You feel hope bloom at the thought of diverse voices shaping how we move into the cosmos, weaving perspectives that reach beyond economics. You breathe deeply as you imagine ethics taught as part of every astronaut's training, every roboticist's education, every mining executive's planning. You sense how this could nurture a culture where questioning what should be done is valued as much as knowing what can be done. Your mind wanders to distant futures where humans have spread among stars, and children learn of Earth's first steps beyond its cradle. You picture these children asking what their ancestors chose. Did they rush to claim everything, or did they pause to wonder what was right? You feel how our answers today could shape the moral compass of civilizations we will never see. Your breath slows as you realize ethics among the stars is not just about protecting rocks and dust, but about protecting our own humanity. You sense how the values we carry outward will define who we become far more than the resources we bring home. Your thoughts grow quiet, settling like moonlight on the lingering question. Will we remember to ask not just what we can take, but what we must preserve as we reach for the worlds beyond our skies? Your breath slows as you realize ethics among the stars is not just about protecting rocks and dust, but about protecting our own humanity. You sense how the values we carry outward will define who we become far more than the resources we bring home. Your thoughts grow quiet, settling like moonlight on the lingering question. Will we remember to ask not just what we can take, but what we must preserve as we reach for the worlds beyond our skies? From this quiet question, your imagination begins to stir, unfolding visions of spaceports rising among dark craters and dusty plains. You see ships arriving and departing in graceful arcs, docking with stations that gleam under the pale light of distant suns. You sense how the hum of engines and the hiss of pressurized airlocks fill the silence once held by cold stone. You picture asteroid refineries humming softly in orbit, solar panels spreading like the petals of giant flowers, gathering sunlight to power machines that transform raw rock into metals, water, or fuel. You feel the quiet thrill of watching supply chains form beyond Earth, lines of ships ferrying refined resources to lunar bases, orbital construction yards, and cities yet to be built. Your breath deepens as you imagine these networks of trade connecting worlds. the moon's water ice feeding Mars-bound missions, asteroid nickel strengthening habitats in deep space, platinum mined from dark rocks funding research that unravels the mysteries of life itself. You sense how a cosmic economy might weave new possibilities across millions of kilometers. You drift to visions of bustling spaceports, their halls lined with merchants selling specialized alloys, tanks of precious gases, crystals grown in zero gravity. You see traders arguing over contracts, technicians checking manifests, robots gliding silently between stacked cargo containers. You sense the quiet pulse of commerce echoing through corridors lit by starlight. Your thoughts rest on the fragile beginning of these economies, how each shipment of ore must be worth the risk of launch, the patience of years-long missions, the weight of insurance and politics. You feel how a single accident or market collapse could ripple across fragile industries, silencing once busy ports and scattering dreams like dust in a solar wind. You let your breath match the slow unfolding of these possibilities. You picture spaceports becoming places where cultures meet, where scientists, miners, artists, and diplomats share meals overlooking cratered horizons. You imagine languages mixing in mess halls, songs from Earth drifting softly over the hum of life support systems. You drift deeper into your vision, sensing how opportunities spread across these cosmic trade routes. You see companies forming to harvest metals, but also teams building telescopes from asteroid materials, artists crafting sculptures from lunar regolith, chefs inventing recipes using crops grown in zero-gravity farms. You feel how the economy of space could become not just a marketplace, but a canvas for human creativity. Your thoughts hover over the delicate balance between profit and purpose. You sense how dreams of cosmic wealth could awaken both generosity and greed. You picture investors hungry for returns, but also visionaries eager to fund education, medicine, or environmental healing back on Earth. You wonder which impulse will guide the flow of these new riches. You breathe slowly as you imagine contracts signed in orbit, agreements shaped by Earth's laws but tested in the unforgiving silence of space. You sense how disputes over missed deliveries, damaged cargo, or unpaid debts could spiral into conflicts that echo across planets. You feel the need for new forms of justice, new ways to mediate when the distances between partners stretch beyond the moon. Your mind wanders to the subtle forces that might shape cosmic economies, the rare alignments of planets that ease travel for a few precious months, the solar storms that delay flights, the shifting prices of platinum or helium-3 as markets at Earth react to news from beyond the sky. You sense how every detail, from the angle of an asteroid's spin to the timing of an engine's burn, could make fortunes or ruin them. You drift through visions of economic bubbles rising and bursting, the first rush to mine a promising asteroid followed by a glut of metals that drives prices to collapse, lunar tourism booming until a single tragedy grounds flights, sudden shortages of rare elements sending ripples of panic through factories building satellites and spacecraft. You sense how these cycles could teach caution or invite reckless speculation. Your breath steadies as you consider who might benefit most from these new opportunities. You picture established spacefaring nations extending their lead, but also smaller countries forming alliances, pooling resources to build ships and share profits. You imagine new players rising from unexpected places, their ingenuity and determination challenging old powers. Your mind settles on the quiet truth that cosmic economies will not be isolated from Earth's challenges. You sense how wars, climate crises, or financial crashes on our blue planet could freeze investments in space overnight, or conversely, how discoveries among the stars could spark hope and growth in places left behind by old industries. You drift to the question of sustainability, how a cosmic economy must learn not to overextend, not to strip resources faster than they can be replaced or recycled. You imagine supply chains built with care, each shipment planned to balance need and conservation, each mission guided by both ambition and wisdom. Your thoughts wander to the fragile workers who will build this economy. Miners in orbiting stations, engineers servicing machinery in vacuum, pilots flying cargo through radiation belts. You sense how their safety, dignity, and well-being must remain at the heart of every contract and calculation. You feel how treating them as expendable would echo old mistakes on Earth, mistakes that left scars still healing today. You breathe deeply as you imagine insurance systems and mutual aid funds created to protect these workers and their families, acknowledging the dangers they face so far from home. You sense how caring for them could build a culture of respect and shared purpose even in the cold silence of space. You let your thoughts settle on the quiet realization that cosmic economies will require more than technology. They will demand patience, fairness, and the ability to adapt to the unexpected. You picture trade disputes resolved through dialogue rather than force, alliances built on trust rather than fear, profits shared to lift lives instead of feeding endless greed. Your breath slows as you sense the potential for these new markets to help heal Earth, funding education, fighting disease, restoring damaged environments. You imagine a future where each asteroid mined carries a promise, that the wealth of space can help sustain the only world where we breathe. Your thoughts rest on the gentle possibility that cosmic economies could become engines not just of wealth, but of peace, uniting nations with shared interests, encouraging cooperation across borders, and inspiring a sense of stewardship that reaches from Earth to the stars. You drift in the quiet glow of this unfolding vision, breathing softly as you wonder, can we learn to build markets that serve life rather than consume it as we stretch our hands toward the infinite night? Your breath slows as you sense the potential for these new markets to help heal Earth, funding education, fighting disease, restoring damaged environments. You imagine a future where each asteroid mined carries a promise, that the wealth of space can help sustain the only world where we breathe. Your thoughts rest on the gentle possibility that cosmic economies could become engines not just of wealth, but of peace, uniting nations with shared interests, encouraging cooperation across borders, and inspiring a sense of stewardship that reaches from Earth to the stars. You drift in the quiet glow of this unfolding vision, breathing softly as you wonder, can we learn to build markets that serve life rather than consume it as we stretch our hands toward the infinite night? Your thoughts linger on that question, swirling like slow eddies in a quiet river, carrying you forward into the final leg of your journey. You breathe deeply as your mind drifts through darkness, sensing veins of metal glinting softly in eternal night. You imagine these golden threads floating between planets, fragile bridges of promise that shimmer beyond your grasp. You picture asteroids tumbling in silence, each one carrying secrets of the solar system's birth, each one hiding riches waiting to be awakened by curious hands. You feel how these ancient travelers embody both the hope of progress and the peril of carelessness, how each drill that pierces their crusts also pierces the unknown, rewriting stories older than Earth itself. Your breath matches the slow pulse of this cosmic ballet. You see delicate machines crawling along asteroid surfaces,